And there was all this stuff about Deans is not an Aussie and he's not a good fit and his face doesn't fit and wait till they get an Aussie coach and they'll play for Pride and all that. But in the end, you're only as good as your players when you're coaching, aren't you? You're only as good as your players, and the Aussie players are not as good as the All Blacks, and certainly the next level down who are feeding into that test team are not as good as what the All Black depth is.
Well, a purple patch of depth for us too, because you look at Corey Jane sitting there with a knee brace on and probably can't get back in the team. He was first choice a couple of months ago.
No, it is amazing. I mean, it's got to it's a really good stage if you're an All Black selector, but it's got to the stage where if you give up your All Black spot, no matter how good you are, you better have your fingers crossed when you're ready to play again.
Because they're talking about bringing back Jerome Kano, but he's no certainty to get his place back. You look at Luatua.
That's right, and even a great player like Daniel Carter. I mean, I think Cruden is a good player too, and in the end, they may be jostling for a place in a year's time. You just don't know.
And with the World Cup, the big goal, the ageing crew, we're not so concerned as perhaps we would have been a year ago.
Yeah, there's not the same preoccupation with it because there's so many good players coming through. It could be just a perception of mine, but we don't seem to have lost quite so many good players overseas in the last year or 18 months as previously.
And they're looking to come back too. It's for a second wind at New Zealand rugby.
Yeah, what they do now is you feel like the year after a World Cup they want to go away and make some money, but they want to be back sort of the year before the next World Cup and stake their claim again. So obviously playing for the All Blacks and winning that World Cup is still very meaningful.
What would you do with Martin Nonu from a domestic point of view?
Well, I don't think... I mean, the coaches' reputations, I mean, they're getting paid. If they don't produce the results, it goes back on them. So I don't think that you can come in over the top and tell a coach he has to have a player who he doesn't want. And it seems pretty obvious that none of them want Nonu. So I don't think you can tell any of them that they've got to take him. Maybe he needs to go and play in Australia or something.
In today, you pay the wage, though, don't they, of the super players? So I suppose they're in a position to say, well, we're paying you some money. We want to see you on the ground.
Yes, but what I'm saying, yeah, that's true. But then it's a funny situation because I think it's unfair on any coach, any Super Rugby coach, to say you have to have this player when they don't want that player.
Benji Marshall, I'm not very excited about this prospect. It'll get a few people along to watch some football, but it's not going to be a Sonny Bill Williams situation.
Well, that's how it's being billed, but it's possible Benji's past his best anyhow. In fact, it's possible he's a couple of years past his best. And I'm not sure he's got quite the physical presence that Sonny Bill would have anyhow. I guess it depends where he's played and so on. But you're right. I'm sure there'll be thousands more spectators in for the first game or two when the Blues play. But after that, yeah, he may well not attract quite the same attention as Sonny Bill.
And I don't think he has a natural position to go to. Sonny Bill was always going to be midfield safely enough. But where do you play Marshall?
Well, normally you think he might be a good first five. But I wouldn't play him there. He's new to rugby. He'd have to learn the game more and so on. So, I don't know. Maybe they'll try him at fullback. It's hard to know, isn't it?
The Blues have struggling for that first five position, so they might be tempted.
Well, I heard they were looking at Daniel Carter, actually. I'm surprised that news hasn't come through because I heard a month ago very strong stories that they were about to sign Daniel Carter for next season.
He's moved to Auckland, well, he's lived in Auckland for some time.
Yeah, but then the sabbatical thing comes into it, so he may only be available for Test rugby from now on.
I'm always curious about sabbaticals. I thought men rest, but a person playing rugby taking a sabbatical goes and plays rugby somewhere else for more money.
But that's always been the way, Tom. I mean, they're just totally exhausted after a huge season of rugby, but if you offer some money for them to fly across the world and play for the Barbarians, they're on their way.
Last point on rugby, the Shield win from Otago, just a wonderful feature of the local scene.
Oh, that was just brilliant. Yeah, you think of all those things that happened over the years, the games they've lost in the last minute, and especially that latter one, I suppose people talk about, the David Latter one, but so many close calls in 56 years. It's almost like the Boston Red Sox going 90 years without winning. So it was great, actually. It was terrific. I mean, I don't think the Ranfurly Shield is that meaningful a trophy these days, not like it was 40 or 50 years ago. Nevertheless, it's got a certain magic to it still, and when Otago wins it, that's just brilliant for that competition.
It has changed. When Marlborough won, they had 2 All Blacks, Canterbury had 11, and the All Blacks really even play the matches these days, but perhaps it's still nice, there's the tradition behind it.
Yeah, well, old fogies like us think the tradition's great, but I'm not sure that my 24-year-old son is that excited about it, and he quite likes rugby. I mean, to him, it's like a second-rate team beating another second-rate team. Meanwhile, let's go and watch the All Blacks.
But they won't keep the crowds away from Forsyth Bar Stadium. They'll be there in big numbers next weekend.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, another Shield era. I hope they hold on to it for a wee while too.
All right, let's go to tennis. The US Open starting shortly. I've lost many a debate with you. Andy Murray looks to be the favourite now.
Yeah, I think he is too, but I'm surprised to hear you saying that, Tom, that's all. I'm shocked, actually. Yeah, I think he's the favourite. Having said that, Nadal's been very hot all summer. I know it's on hard court, not clay, but he's the person I'm sure that everyone else doesn't want to meet at the moment. So looking at the men's draw, yeah, I'm going Nadal and Murray. They're my two. And in the women, the really hot player just lately has been Azarenka. But I can't see a better player in women's tennis than Serena Williams, so if she keeps her head together, she'd win it.
That's all it is, isn't it? Physically, she's just far more dominant than the other players.
Oh, yeah. She's got the serve and she's got the power. She's getting on a bit, but she's still easily athletic enough. If she just keeps her head together, she is clearly the best player out there.
All right, let's go to the World Track and Field Champs. Usain Bolt, one of my favourite athletes. Please, may he never fail a drugs test.
Yes, but would you stake your life on it? That's the question. It's just unlucky for Usain, isn't it? There's always this little asterisk now because all his Jamaican teammates keep failing tests and other top sprinters fail tests. In the history of sprinting, so many people have failed tests, and you hope he's clean.
He's physically built different though than a sprint. He's got the long legs. He's got a different athleticism for me than perhaps the muscle-bound freaks of before.
Yeah, he doesn't look muscle-bound like a Ben Johnson. That's true, but his world record is 9.58. That's very fast. I love him. I think he's great for the sport. He's a great personality. He's very approachable, actually, and I'm the same as you. I hope he's always revealed to be clean.
Well, they kicked out those Jamaicans and they still won the relays.
Yeah, men and women. They failed. They had Jamaicans failing drugs tests, men and women beforehand, and they still won both the sprint relays.
Valerie Adams says her performance just continues her dominance in world chop putting.
Yeah, she's one of the 2 or 3 greatest athletes in the world now, the Russian pole vaulter, and Valerie, really. And Valerie's unbeaten for the longest spell. She's a superstar of sport. Same thing. Hope she never fails a drug test either. I doubt that she will. I'm just saying, you never really look at your own, do you? You always think, well, they're obviously fine. But I suppose if you were from overseas, you'd be looking at her saying, she's a big girl. Yeah.
It's sad, isn't it? It's that indictment that every success story now on track or field, there's a question mark.
That's right. I mean, she's never been anything but clean to my eye. But that is the way now. If someone's that dominant, then everyone's nudging each other and pointing at them. It's a very sad state of affairs.
The other standout performance for me, the guy I really like, Mo Farah, the Somalian who now represents the UK, he's a phenomenon, isn't he?
He ran 3:28 for the mile before the for the 1500 before that World Track and Field Champs. I mean, he could have won the 1500 as well. And he's great. They can't outkick him over 5 or 10. He is some athlete. I see there's talk about him having an 800 metre race with Usain Bolt, him coming down to 800 and Bolt going up. Well, I'd definitely pick Mo for that one.
They've done that in the past. I don't know whether that's... there was a combined one where someone pulled a hamstring. I can't remember what it was.
The Canadian sprinter, they were running over 300 metres. But this one would be interesting because you've got a guy who's great over 10,000 racing a guy who's great over 100. It's a gimmick, but it'll be interesting.
And they say, obviously, marathon's the next step for him. It'd be hard to deny that he's not going to be a threat there.
Well, I'm sure he would be, but I don't know why he'd need to go to the marathon at the moment. They can't outkick him over on the track. So, I mean, if I was him, it's hard work, a marathon. Just keep winning the 5 and 10 doubles, not a bad, week's work.